Welcome, welcome, welcome to another What's Up Wednesday. Holy cow, have we got a big show for you tonight? And I am not kidding. This is going to be an exciting show from start to finish. We've got some really big announcements, including in the house, we've got Tin Can Carl. Carl, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome. I'm glad to be here.
It's just a delight to have you here, sir. And what makes you kind of cool is a number of things. We're going to talk about this in just a second. Hurricanes updates, but you're a solo male traveler in your Travato. So again, that's something we don't showcase a lot, and we want to do more of that. So thank you again for sharing your time tonight.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
This is so great. So here's what we got in store for you. The first thing we want to do tonight is give a thought and a prayer to our friends and family that just survived the storm. And I've had many of you reach out to me today, and thankfully where the green arrow is where my home base is, West Palm Beach. I go there every Christmas, and we were not affected at all. However, we've had some friends in Cedar Key, Florida. I've got a lot of memories in Cedar Key, Florida, including one friend that's now deceased, but his wife is there. And the top white arrow, the middle arrow there, Carl, is the historic downtown of Cedar Key, and one of the greatest steam clam experiences you'll ever have is at Steamers. That is the bottom left arrow. Have you ever been to Cedar Key, Florida?
No, I have not. No, I haven't made it there yet. I've been all over Florida, but I missed Cedar Key.
It's kind of hard to get to, which is, I think, on purpose. And there's a number of cool campgrounds. You cannot street camp. I will give you a fair warning there. But what makes this kind of really important tonight is, Carl is sharing his time because, Carl, what are we looking at here? What is Rancho del Carl?
Rancho del Carl is my property in Florida, and I'm actually coming to you right now from Northern California, so I'm a long way away from the damage. But Hurricane Idalia came through this morning, and there's the track from the National Weather Service of the eye of the storm, and I took a direct hit at my property in Florida that I call Rancho del Carl.
So we're going to get into that a little bit, show you some before and after pictures, and to give you some context of where all this is. So there's a Keaton Beach that's just outside your, just very, very close to your property, Rancho del Carl, right?
That's right. Just a few miles, yes.
And then there's Cedar Key a bit south. And then we have our friends at Sunshine State RVs in Gainesville. That's kind of the arrow there on the top right. And the bottom right is Micanopy, Florida. I did a video on that, one of the really historic favorite places in Florida. So that gives you a little context. But what we're talking about tonight is Tin Can Carl, his Van Vincent, and the stories of how did you get where you are. I just love this picture. Carl, I did this survey earlier today. The question was, as a solo traveler in your camper van, what would be your biggest concern? Breakdown was the number one concern at nearly half of the respondents of over 160 votes. Carl, are you surprised by that at all?
No, actually, because that's probably my number one concern. This is my home, and I travel around in it. And if anything happened to Vince, I would be in trouble. So, yeah, breakdown is a problem and a concern.
So we're going to talk about that as part of Carl's story. He's got some topics and some advice, and I do too on this topic, because even personal safety, I was surprised that breakdowns was the number one. I was expecting personal safety. By the way, if you're joining us for the first time, howdy, my name is Scott. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Go Small, Live Large. And we do this every Wednesday at 6. We bring on cool guests like Tin Can Carl to help you be a better RVer in your rig, whether you're still researching, part-time, taking cool trips of days, weeks, or months, or even like me and Carl, full-time travelers. Now I'm in my 5th year. You're in your 3rd year? 2nd year. It just seems like we started yesterday, right? It's so amazing. We do have a big announcement at the bottom of the hour, and we're going to try and stay really on tight with this. So if you watched the What's Up Wednesday last week, I was at Embassy RV headquarters. They're a partner of mine. Love them. Love the vans they do. And we have the winning bid for that Allan Jackson Silverbelly whiskey wagon. So we're going to announce that tonight at the bottom of the hour. The person that won knows that they've won, but this is kind of a big deal. We're announcing it live here on What's Up Wednesday. Also, I want to announce we're doing a channel roundup in Bardstown, Kentucky. It's, I don't know, hour-ish, kind of southeast of Louisville, on September 17th, 3 p.m. at the Heaven Hill Distillery. They make a lot of brands of bourbon. Carl, have you ever been to a distillery tour? Carl, are you there? Uh-oh. Please hold. Can you hear me, Carl? We can't hear you. Maybe we'll give it a second to recycle. So stay there, Carl. Let me know if you can hear us. Otherwise, we have you log in, log out. We're both running off cellular connections tonight. So if you're in the Bardstown area, please come join me. This is going to be after the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, which ends that Sunday. So I may well be drinking lemonade by that point. Speaking of bourbon, our libation live tonight is Garrison Brothers out of Texas. We'll give you some news on that. And then this day in history has to do with a space shuttle, among other things. And then the Allman Brothers Band, one of Carl's favorite songs, is going to be our song of the week. So again, a big show. Let me go a few more things, and then we'll get into some of this content with Carl. Carl, can you hear us yet? Can you guys, ladies and gentlemen, hear me? I'm assuming so. Carl, what we might have you do is leave the studio, then jump back in. That sometimes solves the problem. So let me keep going. So this is the question format that we like to use. It's 3 stars, 3 question marks, and then your question. That really helps me find it, see it, and answer it. Let us know if you don't see your country's flag on the map. Here comes Carl. Let's see if this worked this time. There. Is that better? I don't hear you. Let's see. Hang tight. Audio. MacBook speakers. That's fine. Oh, no. This has been working perfect for an hour. What's happened? Anything change on yours? Are you, did you mute yourself by chance, Carl? I don't see that you have. We can hear you, Scott, but not the guest, says Roads of Life. Did you hit the mute button on your computer by accident, not the software? Let me keep going. Let's him kind of identify that. We've been in here for like an hour, so this is kind of weird. This is so I'm coming at you from Holland, Michigan, and there's Miss Lily. That's my van, my home for 5 years almost. Coming at you from the state park. This is kind of a cool state park. If you're not familiar with Holland, it's on the other side of Lake Michigan, very near Grand Rapids. It's in the lake effect zone for snow, and they are used to weather here in Holland, although it's super pleasant. It's going to be actually 55 degrees tonight, and it was in the mid 70s today. It was really lovely. Carl, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just switched.
Perfect. We got you back.
Okay, you got me back. I switched over to a different cell connection here, so maybe T-Mobile will be doing better than Verizon.
Let's go T-Mobile. Come on. So, Carl, where are you coming at us from? This is kind of the weather map today. Pretty hot across the country, except for where I am, and maybe you too.
It's beautiful where I am. It's 65 degrees and sunny. I'm in Crescent City, California, on the Pacific Coast.
That is pretty awesome. And it's perfect RV weather where I am. It's mid 70s during the day and then mid 50s at night. This is gasoline pricing. I'm kind of weird to say that a fuel buddy or a gas buddy here is off by $1. I've recycled this app a few times today, and it's really about $3.59 a gallon. So this is kind of weird. And then this is an expensive area. It's by water, and if you're on the water, you shell out at least $1 million. What's the fuel price there, Carl, that you're at?
Oh boy, $5.59 a gallon. Welcome to California.
Oof, that's a pocket pinch. This is my route plan. We're gonna start putting this out so you get a sense of where I am, where I'm headed, and why. So it's kind of an eye chart. I apologize. I'll make this better for next week. But again, I'm in Holland there on the kind of the east side of the Lake Michigan. I'm headed to Embassy RV tomorrow. We're going to record some content. I'm really excited about that. Include a how to buy an RV from Embassy RV. And then I'm headed to my home dealer in Winnebago Motorhomes in Rockford, Illinois. I'm getting my awning fixed. The motor burned out. And then we're getting my adventure box put on my exterior, which I'm super excited. The bike rack looks great. You're going to love that. and then we're headed to Kentucky for the Bourbon Festival. And these points kind of in between our Volta stops. So I'm really excited about this. We're headed to Chattanooga by early October. Are you kind of sitting tight where you are, Carl, for the next little bit?
Just a few more days. I'm hoping the weather cools off right after Labor Day this coming Sunday. I'm going to head back into the interior of the country. I'm planning to head up to to your hometown, to Spokane and the Palouse area of Washington, before I make my way back across the middle of the country, and I need to be back in Florida by mid-October.
Well, if I can give you a travel tip, take Highway 2, join it as early as you can, and then drive across that. It's super pretty. And the Dry Falls, the coulee there, you are going to, have you seen that before by chance?
No, I haven't. I've been on Highway 2, but over in Minnesota and Montana, but I have not been on 2 in Washington.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it. It's just a bunch of small towns. It's a state highway, and or it's a U.S. highway, whatever. But the Dry Falls will stun you. It's like 8x size of Niagara Falls, and it's all dry now. But yeah, it's fairly recent geological terms. Like I pick a number, 50,000 years ago or something like that. But you'll be stunned. And let me just a few more things to point out. You can follow me on Instagram, although I haven't been very active lately. Facebook, we got our own Facebook group. Just search Facebook, Go Small, Live Large. There we are. Big shout out to Sandy. I need to post something there. Events and Zoom. Again, we're doing the Bardstown Heaven Hill Distillery on the 17th of September. We've got a Zoom call tomorrow. I think, Carl, you're part of this, which is awesome. Thank you, sir, for being a patron. Appreciate that.
We'll do a postmortem on my appearance today.
Right? No, you're doing such a great job. He has put a lot of work into this, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to sneak peek behind the scene and really get involved with people that are doing this in a meaningful way, not that we all aren't, but folks like Carl and me and Sandy, I mean, there's a whole group in here now, and it's just a great way to learn about van life and make van friends, which is kind of the whole thing about the whole thing. We got the Adventure Van Expo camp out again, October 6th, and then the Peace 11 vans in February 24. I think that's it. The tickets are still available. Use the discount code GSLL Scott. You can save a big old 5%. And the Birds of a Feather sold out, but there's still lots of space in the overall campground. What else I got? That's it. Whew. Okay. Good. Tin Can Carl. So here's the I know. Welcome, Tin Can Carl. This is so great. So I just had to use this, Carl, as the thumbnail, because it makes people just go like, what? Brady Bunch? What? On wheels? I know. So let's just have you. This is what we want to cover with you. I've lost my cursor. There we go. We will talk a little bit about, in the beginning, Carl's going to share a story a little bit, talk about the Travato 59G that he's in. And we're going to talk about home base Florida, because to a lot of people, that's a big deal. Even full timing, right? And then some of the destinations. So let's kind of get into this. Carl, just talk about breakdowns a little bit, because I think if that's the number one concern for folks, including yourself, sometimes, just give me some of the things that have broken and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, it really is a concern because this is my home. I travel in it, and I don't know what I would do if I had a serious breakdown and had to be in a hotel like you did after your accident. I've had the air conditioner compressor, the chassis air conditioner compressor go out, so I had pretty expensive repair with that. Speaking of an awning, I've had my awning recall done, which is pretty common on the Travatos. There's a major problem with the Carefree awnings. I had the recall done and then had problems with it afterwards, so I now have zip ties around it and have the power turned off, and I don't use the awning at all right now until I get back home to Florida and maybe get Vince into Sunshine State RVs to see if they can figure out what's wrong with the gears, because it won't retract by itself. I've had a few other small problems like water pump go out and a couple of minor things like that. But a major problem, it concerns me when I hear of things like you had with your serpentine belt on yours and think about being out of service for 3 or 4 days. That's pretty serious. So I hope not. Keep my fingers crossed.
I know, right? Well, I think you made some good ones there. So here's a couple points. So thinking about your water pump in particular, how did you solve that to get that fixed? Did you go to a dealer, or did you do it yourself, or call a mobile service tech?
Yeah, I actually went to a dealer. I went to Sunshine State RVs where I bought the Travato, and they replaced the leaking. It was a leaking valve near the water pump, actually. And then later I had another problem with the water pump that it sounded like it was going to break. It was making chugging sounds. They investigated and found out I had some mineral deposits in the water lines that was causing the clog. So I actually replaced the some of the plumbing and the bathroom and the faucet, and that has pretty much taken care of it. But I still have a little bit of a problem. I must have some more mineral deposits. One of the problems you have when you fill water from campgrounds, sometimes they're pretty high in mineral content because they're usually well water, and that tends to build up in the water lines and can restrict the water flow in the water lines and cause the pump to sound like it's going out. But it works well. I took a shower this morning, got nice and clean, so it works.
No wonder you smell good. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. To that, I would add, I've used a mobile RV technician several times during my 4.5 years of full-time travel. What's great about them is they come to you either same or next day within a day or two. If you're at a campground like a KOA, something like that, they will recommend ones for you. Check with the residents if they've used them, and they will tell you which ones to use. And they charge a trip charge, and they usually have the parts available. And if you kind of know what you're thinking about, all these RVs have the same kind of water pump. You know, the common stuff, the fan, water pumps, maybe some furniture stuff. Those are all real propane's, all real common stuff. So I would, rather than kind of return to home base or wait for a dealer, try the RV mobile technician. We had one on the show a number of months ago.
I had a problem with the isolation solenoid, the one that allows me to charge the house batteries off of the chassis alternator, and it went out. And I went to a Napa Auto Parts store, bought the solenoid, and then used the mobile RV repairman in Billings, Montana, to replace it. And actually, it's still not working, by the way. I'm not sure he wired it correctly, so I'm talking with Scott Grippentrog. I'm sure a lot of people know Scott, and I'm going to see him in Tennessee on my way back to Florida and get him to diagnose the problem and get it fixed. And in the meantime, I'm going to hope that I can overnight without charging the battery off of the alternator, but maybe off of the solar panels and the generator, and stay plugged in when I can. I don't have a GL. I don't have lithium, Scott, so I'm dependent on the batteries and the generator.
Not everybody does or need that, but let's just kind of remind you of the format here. And I want to give a huge shout out to Peggy. She's going to be our first question tonight because she's using the format correctly. Peggy wants to know, Carl, what is the most important advice you would give to a Class B RVer? And then we're going to get into your story.
That would be your advice, Scott, which is why do you want to travel? What do you want to accomplish in your travels? And for me, it is flexibility and the ability to move easily and move every day and find easy parking and be able to camp nearly anywhere. So the most important advice is try to determine what you want to do with your travels. And then you can find the right RV for you. And for me, it was a Class B RV.
Yeah, 100% with you on that. All right, so let's have you start in the beginning. And Carl's done some really great jobs sending some photographs. So in the beginning, it was not an RV. What are we looking at here, Carl? This, unless you got a cooler in the back seat.
That would be kind of hard to live in that. That's a 1971 Dodge Challenger. That was my hot car right after high school in the early 70s. Beautiful orange car with a black vinyl top and a black interior. And I was hot rodding around in that thing in Raleigh, North Carolina, when I had a girlfriend at that time, and her idea of a hot date was to go to different car dealerships and look at hot cars. So we were driving around to the car dealerships, and she'd love to ride in the Challenger. And one day we were at a car dealership, and I looked next door, and there was an RV dealer. And I thought, well, those things are cool. And it was a Winnebago dealer. And I walked next door, and you see the photo there of a Winnebago Brave, 1971 Winnebago Brave. And I said, boy, I really like this thing. It has everything I need to live in it. Look at this. It has batteries and a generator and beautiful shag carpet and this 1970s interior. That's what it would have looked like had I bought it. But, life got in the way. And things didn't work out for the RV living, so I did a more conventional lifestyle during my working career. I was 30 years in the airline industry and some years in the gaming industry in Las Vegas, and I ended up instead of an RV of driving that Challenger for a while, and then eventually let's look at this. There it is.
I just want to compare these two because when people think RVs, they think of the Winnebago we're looking at. We're looking at two of them, though, right? But they're the same size almost. That's insane.
Yeah, interesting. It looks like
Oh, you might have to pull your sliding patio door down because I think all the window screens, Carl, are blocking you. So I think what he's trying to say is that these are nearly identical in size, even though they're decades apart. Can you hear us, Carl? Shake your head if you can hear us. Carl, are you there? Caller, are you there? Let me go back to this, see if we can. Can you hear me? You're frozen. Maybe put your screen down on the patio door because that foil I've found is usually not our friend. And if you can move your phone or whatever you're using closer to the window that's open. So we'll say hi to some. This worked great for an hour. It's so funny. This is the way the internet works. You might have to leave and come back, Carl, with the other source, maybe. Let me say hi to some folks while we do that. We'll kind of. You want to talk this? There he is. Okay, there you are. Thank you, folks, for your patience. Appreciate that. So again, let me just go back once. So Carl, thanks for moving through this. So again, these very different rigs, decades apart, but very close in size. Uh-oh. All right, let's we'll go to this and then I'll just wait for him to come back. And here we go. Let me see if we can say hi to some folks while we do this. We got some new names here. So great. Here we are. Add them to the stream. There you go.
Am I back now?
Oh, that's much better. And you're even clear too. So that's good. Sometimes I've found that
but now it's breaking up.
No, I can hear you fine. Sometimes I found that on our screens, the foil backed reflective material really cuts the cellular. So if you can pull the blind down on your patio side, that might help a little bit. Are you frozen?
Yeah. Actually, okay. I'm right beside the antenna. I have a WeBoost, and I switched back to my other connection. Let's try that.
Okay, let's do that.
Hear me
so,
now?
Yep, we can hear you fine. And so tell us, you kind of did a traditional life for a while. How that turned out? What was the deal there?
Yeah, that was the last house that my wife and I lived in. Unfortunately, she came down with a serious terminal disease, and we were 2.5 years of cancer treatments and radiation and more treatments and more radiation and so forth. And unfortunately, and then sadly, she passed away in December of 2020. And during that period that she was ill, I had a chance to think what I might do after she's gone. And I decided I was getting ready to age out in the RV lifestyle as I was in my late 60s. So I bought a travel trailer. I bought a 25-foot travel trailer. And I towed that around for about 6 months or so. My plan was to go around to art festivals and show my work at art festivals. I'm a photographer. And I was actually a partner, an owner of a photography gallery in Rochester, New York. I pulled the travel trailer around for about 6 months or so, and my poor old aching back couldn't take the leveling and chocking and the hitching and unhitching and so forth. There's my travel trailer with the pickup truck that I used to tow it around. And that got to be too much. And I knew it. I really, when I started my RV journey, I knew I really preferred a camper van, but they were hard to find. This was in the height of the pandemic. And I was having trouble finding them. So I contacted Sunshine State RVs and spoke with Shelley, one of the salespeople down there, and told Shelley I wanted a used Travato 59G. And it took about 6 months or so before Shelley finally called me one day and said, I have one. It's in stock. I was hoping for maybe a 2018 or a 2019 something used that would be a little more reasonable, but she found a 2021 that was traded in. And Vince is a very lightly used van. He only had about 2,700 miles on him when I bought him. So he's essentially new. And it
was some of the inspiration
during that time,
yeah.
I'm sorry?
Some of your inspiration? Who's this guy?
Yeah, my inspiration is Traveling Robert, Robert Morales, who has a YouTube channel he calls Traveling Robert. And I was following Robert on YouTube, and he bought a piece of property in Florida, and I knew I needed a new home. I didn't want to spend another winter in upstate New York. So, like Robert, I bought a 1 acre lot in near Perry, Florida, and I'm a neighbor of Robert's. I'm about 5 or 6 blocks from the place he calls Pellicamp. He does his live YouTube broadcast from Pellicamp from time to time, and he was doing it one night, and I drove Vince in and waved at him on camera as he was live on YouTube, and he invited me in, and I sat there and enjoyed his live broadcast. It was fun. So I have we'll talk about that more in a few minutes, but here's something interesting. I was in Sunshine State RVs having a little work done on vents. I think it was the water pump. No, it was the Max Air fan. I had the Max Air fan replaced. That's another thing that happened. And while I was in the maintenance waiting room, you walked in and said hi to me, and we got a photo made there. And 5 minutes later, Hank Strange of Stranger Palooza walked in, and I've got my photo made with him. So it's quite a celebrity sighting in Sunshine State RV's maintenance department sometimes.
it's like a I don't know, a family reunion. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a meeting
and
place.
then
Yeah,
Vince Van Gogh is your name.
Yeah, I named him Vincent Van Gogh, and I call him Vince, and he definitely goes. I've had Vince not quite 2 years now, and we've done about almost 70,000 miles now and covered just about every state in the country except 4 or 5 states that I'm going to pick up here in the next few weeks, and that'll be it. We will have covered everything except Alaska and Hawaii.
Wow, that's crazy. And unless they build a bridge to Hawaii, you're probably not going?
Probably not, and I'm not sure they can build a bridge quite big enough for Vince. That's a long way to Hawaii now.
Airlift Vince. Let's take a few questions, and then we want to, in 3 minutes, cut to the if you came in for the Embassy RV winner, we want to announce that in just a few minutes. But let's answer a few questions here, Carl. Again, just such an amazing story how life creates. I'm going to give a huge shout out to Jerry Minchie. He's going to be on our show in a few weeks. And aren't you glad, Jerry, you're not in Cedar Key? Oh my God, those poor folks down there. I hope they're okay. Let's see. I saw a couple questions here. We saw Piggies, and Roads of Life always has a good. Let's do Deb first, right here. So Deb wants to know, Carl, any great New Hampshire camping spots from Colorado? We were in the Upper Peninsula, Grand Marais, a week ago.
A lot of great camping spots in New Hampshire. I'm trying to remember where I stayed when I was up there. And I know I went through, by the way, one of the most beautiful towns I've ever seen is Concord, New Hampshire. I was really blown away with that town. It's one of the prettiest towns I've ever been in this country. So I highly recommend that area. New Hampshire's beautiful, especially if you can do it in the fall. But specific campgrounds, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
No problem. One thing you might try, Deb. Excuse me. One thing you might try, Deb, is we love harvest hosts on this channel because it takes you places you wouldn't necessarily go to do things like I love to do, learn, and then we share. So you might, if you're not a harvest host member, check that out. And the Harvest Host now actually in their app has a route planning tool. So you can punch in destination from where you are and it maps that all out for you. Pretty cool. Roads of Life has a question, Carl, and we've got 2 minutes before the big announcement. What is the best part of traveling alone? Oh, I know this one. And what's the worst part? You go first.
I'm going to give you the same answer you just had, Scott. The best part of traveling alone is I get to make all the decisions on my own and do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I don't have to close the bathroom door if I don't want to. That's kind of nice.
And he did thank you for closing mine. That's before we started.
Yeah,
but,
just before we started, Scott closed his door back there. Yeah. The worst part, I don't know that there is a worst part. I love it. I'm very happy with it. It's somebody asked me the other day, somebody here in the campground where I am now, if I was lonely, and I said, no, I'm not lonely. I am alone, and I travel alone, but I don't at all feel lonely. I'm connected through the internet to friends all over the country through some of the Facebook groups like the Travato Owners and Wannabes, and of course I'm connected with Scott and other folks like Traveling Robert, and I meet people in the campgrounds. In fact, one of my fellow members of the Travato Owners Group stopped by and saw me here in the campground a couple of days ago, spent about an hour and visited. So it's wonderful. I meet people all over the country. So it's great. I love it.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
To that, I would add, I don't argue with myself too often, and when I do argue, I always win. So it's pretty great.
Definitely
Uh,
not like being married, Scott. I can tell you that.
okay, so this is if you again joined us last week, I was live at the Embassy RV headquarters in Elkhart, Indiana. They had a very unusual situation. This is the Allan Jackson Silverbelly whiskey wagon that Allan Jackson, the musician who's now retired, returned the van to Embassy as a lease return, and then they were selling it. So what we thought would be kind of cool is to have a bidding auction type thing that was all run through Embassy RV. I'm just giving the announcement here, and I'm really thrilled. It was kind of pins and needles. So we didn't want to give out too much personal information, but she has been contacted, and here I want to kind of walk through what the deal was. So she's got the whiskey wagon. It literally came down to the last 2 minutes, and then literally the last 10 seconds. She bought that van for $165,005. The $5 is there was a bid that came in just before her for $165,000. Now she could have done what I would have done, is just put another $2,000 in there, but she was using the Price is Right strategy, which is all you need is $1. And so it was literally down to the last seconds. She sent the email to Terry, and she got it for $5 more than the next highest bid. So Price is Right. If you haven't tuned into, oh golly, what's that guy's name? Bob Barker just died recently, right? I'm dying. Drew. If you haven't tuned into that, it's just one of the greatest shows ever. So that's Christy. Congratulations on getting your new Travato, your new Embassy RV Dolphin S. They're going to do some work on the van, as you know, to get it up to speed, some improvements, and they're going to take off the wrap. But the cool thing is, two different things is Allan Jackson signed a plaque that's going to be in the van, and the interior color scheming and badging for the Silverbelly whiskey is going to be left in it for you. If you want it, I would certainly keep it in mind. And you get a case of booze. You get a case of Silverbelly whiskey, which there's 6 bottles in the case. I think Terry said at about $50. That's worth $300 alone. So here we go, Carl. Somebody launching themselves into van life with a story already. Pretty exciting. So again, just a huge congratulations to Christy. Good job. $5. You never know what it's going to take to get you over the line, right? So big shout out to Christy. And for those of you in the Embassy family joining us tonight, you know what an exciting time that is. Because every embassy is built to order. There's rarely one kind of floating around for sale. So Carl, let's answer a few more questions here, and then let's get back into the story. This was a great one. Roads of Life always has good questions, and I'll kind of cue us up. Then we want to get into your van story. So, Roads of Life wants to know. This is great. How do you plan trips, Carl, or do you just wing it?
I don't do a lot of advanced planning. Long-term planning for me is lunch, but I'll take off in the morning and decide somewhere an hour down the road where I'm going for sure. I generally just look at Google Maps to get an idea of where I'm going and what I might do in any given day. And the one app that I like to use is RV Parky. RV Parky helps me find campgrounds and Cracker Barrels and things of that nature. So that my planning is pretty loose and easy. I don't do a lot of advanced planning, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he rolls a little differently. He's a retired guy, which I'm super jealous. I got a lot of duties, and so what I do is I plan a reservation about every 2 or 3 days out. So I give flexibility, but I definitely have a trajectory. You saw that on my route plan, so it's a little bit of both. Carl, I think what we want to do, I made a mistake. We've already talked about your van, how you got there. So we want to talk about home base, because that's a big deal for a lot of folks that don't want to maybe even travel full time like yourself, but I do want a place to go to in case there's, I don't know, you need a home base. So tell us what we're looking at here. Then let's show some of the hurricane damage. It's literally just hours old in from your neighbor.
Sure, that's that is the place in Florida that I call Rancho del Carl. That's just a funny name I picked for it. In following traveling Robert bought a 1 acre lot near Perry, Florida, on the Gulf Coast, which we're all familiar with the events that occurred today down in that area. And Robert bought a 1 acre lot and listed his realtor's name. So I contacted his realtor and bought a 1 acre lot that was undeveloped. I had a septic tank installed, had water well drilled, and had electric service put on there and a driveway put in. You see my driveway there. What you're looking at on the far left is Vince parked under his carport that I had built for him to keep the hot Florida sun off. My travel trailer that I used to pull around is sort of my backup living place should I need a place at some point, like if Vince were to be wrecked or stolen or something, God forbid. And when this photo was made, the carport over the trailer was being built. It was under construction, wasn't completed yet. You don't see the top on it. Over on the far right is a big Winnebago Class A motorhome that is owned by a friend of mine named Tom, who rents a space from me there on the lot, and his little red car parked in front of it. Tom actually just about 2 weeks ago bought a house about an hour away and has moved into his house. So he weathered out the hurricane this morning over at his house, but left his motorhome on my property, mainly because he has a mechanical problem with it and can't pull in the slide and can't retract the stabilizers. So his motorhome continues to sit on Rancho del Carl there. And I have 4 RV hookups on the site. And Tom rented one of them from me, and I had another couple that rented a spot from me for about 6 months as well. So I call that home, and it's nice having a renter because Tom has my mailbox key, can go by the mailbox and check my mail for me and let me know if anything important comes. Like just the other day, a letter from the tax assessor came in, and he was able to take a photo of it with his phone and send it to me. So I keep up with my mail, but most of my mail is electronic. So that's home base. Cool. And everybody needs a place to call home. So Florida is home, and Vince has Florida tags, or tag. In Florida, we only have one tag on the rear. Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of a cool idea if you're going to set something up like this. And it's a dream I have to do this a few places across the country, is to put in a few spaces so you get a little income. So to help offset some of the expenses. So super smart. Again, we just want to thank you, Carl, for taking your time. What a stressful day for you. And we showed this earlier. So Carl has had a neighbor come over and take some pictures. So we want to show you this. So again, this is literally what he's dealing with. Anything further you want to say about this particular image?
No, that's it. Except I took a direct hit at Rancho del Carl this morning.
Yeah.
Hurricane Idalia just went right over the property, and there's the result. There's looking at my trailer from the backside, and you can see the carport is pretty much destroyed, and there's probably some damage to the roof. And actually, I think the trailer is actually blown back off of its mounts a little bit. Let's see. I think you have another photo from the front, don't you? Yeah, there it is. So there's the damage that some of the damage that I incurred. Although there's a lot of trees down too. I think Scott may have a photo or two of the trees, but as you can see, there's a lot of damage on the property. There's Tom's motorhome on the left, and on the right, it looks like a tree has fallen into his motorhome. These photos literally came in just before we went live on the air, so I haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but. I certainly sustained some damage, and some of the other photos that I don't think Scott has show a tree laying across the driveway and so forth, and blocking the entrance and that kind of thing. So I definitely took some damage down there, but again, I'm more than 2,000 miles away in Northern California and safe, and can look at it from a distance, and that's what insurance companies are for. So we'll get through it.
He's got a pretty good spirit about it. He's already talked to the contractor. They're coming back to work on that. And so I'm really, really excited about that. We're going to go just a few more minutes. Actually, let me get some questions, because when we talk about destinations, I think this is so important because, and you're a photographer. We've had a number of photographers on here that have taken amazing pictures. And we want to show you some of these because I think the destination, the floor plan is so important, right? But it's where you go and what you experience through your van. It's really the big thing. So we're going to share those with you. Then we got Libation Live, but we got some more questions. I see Roads of Life in here, but let's give Eric a turn here. Eric wants to know, Carl, I'm a solo RVer. I'm on a quest to find aircraft, train, car, fire engine museums, lighthouses, and covered bridges. Holy cow, sir. Left Massachusetts on September 11, 2020. So you're kind of just getting rolling too. Congratulations. You've been at it a while, actually. Any suggestions, Carl, on how to find these kind of things?
I use your method, Scott. I look for the brown signs on the side of the road. When you see a brown sign, that means there's something of interest that's recreational, and you'll see a museum or covered bridge half a mile this way, or Lighthouse Road. And when you see one that says Lighthouse Road, you can pretty well rest assured there's a lighthouse out there somewhere. So it's always fun to go look for them. And I've done all of those things, as a matter of fact, that he mentioned. They're everywhere, all over the country. And I barely scratched the surface in 2 years.
Yeah. Eric, congratulations on being a solo RVer. Yeah, we don't applaud the guys enough for doing that. We always applaud the ladies. But it's either way, it's you're doing something different than what a lot of folks would roll. I would add to what Carl said is we talked about this before is get a Harvest Host membership, see what's going on in your area. I have literally stayed at a airport, a train, I'm not sure what car is, a lighthouse, fire engine museum. I haven't been to there, but I've slept next to fire stations. Does that covered bridges? I don't quite get the whole covered bridge thing, but cover Harvest Host. Look in your area. You can actually search in your area for those topics, and they'll float forward. Last Sunday, I was at stayed at Harvest Host here in Holland, Michigan. It's a bowling alley with laser tag. It's so much fun. So that's what I would recommend you doing if you really have specifics on that. Then the Google, about that. Let's see. Roads of Life got a question for you, Carl. And thanks for watching, Eric. Really appreciate that. Congrats. Let us know what kind of rig you have, Eric. Were you a pilot at one point? That looks like a Southwest Airlines. Roads of Life wants to know, Carl, any issues if you need medical care on the road? That's always a big one.
Yeah, I made sure when I selected my healthcare plan that it was a PPO with coverage out of network, and I've only had to avail myself of it once, knock on wood, and that was for a problem that I needed to see an ophthalmologist when I was in Lake Havasu, Arizona. But other than that, I'm fortunate I haven't had any serious problems on the road. My doctors are all back in Florida. In fact, most of them are in the Tallahassee area. And as Scott mentioned, I have some medical issues. I do have a doctor that I have to see for cancer treatments and surgeries and cancer treatments and surgeries. But, as soon as I get through those and he says, you're looking pretty good, Carl, I declare myself cured and I hit the road again. But he says, come back and see me every few months. So I'm going to have to be back in mid-October to take another look. So I try to arrange my doctor visits. I see a couple of other doctors when I get home to Florida. But on the road, just the ophthalmologist in Lake Havasu is all I've had to do so far. Thank you.
Lake Havasu. That's a great town, Lake Havasu. And what a great attitude you have, Carl. I'm telling you. Now, a lot of people, depending on your seriousness of your condition, then, your length of your blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of people that just kind of sit around and mope waiting for the next appointment.
No, not me. I try to stay away from the doctor as much as possible. In fact, he said, come back and see me in 3 months. And I said, can you make 4 months? I want to travel across the country. He said, okay, 4 months. And then when I contacted his nurse to schedule it, I'd made it 5 months. And actually, I was even thinking about calling and saying, gee, I'm running a little bit late. Can we move it into November? But I really should be back. So I'm going to make it back in mid-October.
I just love how you roll. I swear to God, if people kind of got the curiosity quotient turned up, it'd solve a lot of conditions that we just, sit in front of the TV. But that's cool. I'm being very judgy. I apologize. Let's see. Roads of Life has a question here. Do you have pets? If so, how's traveling with them? Any major issues? And then we're going to show some destinations.
No, I have no pets and don't know. So I don't travel with pets. Scott, you could probably address that better than I can.
I want a kitty, but not right now. That's Vanlife Luke was amazing. Tuxedo sucked. And okay, let's talk about destinations, and we will bring in Libation. There's a bunch of questions in here, so we see you. Thank you for that. And let me just flash this up, Dan. We had mentioned, thank you for asking. So we're fine in, so my partner runs our Airbnb business which are completely separate from mine. My business, which is a YouTube RV, but he's in the West Palm Beach area. So we missed another one, which is pretty miraculous. Okay, destinations. Carl, you had so many beautiful pictures just like this. I really had to cherry pick. So again, kind of how do you find these? Do you have a combination of state parks? You say you don't do national parks, but where was this, and what's kind of your methodology on this?
I shouldn't say I don't do national parks. I will do national parks. I've done several of them, but state parks are just as beautiful and often less crowded and less expensive and easier to get to. So I tend to go towards state parks and sometimes city and county parks when I find those. This particular photograph is Davidson River Campground south of Asheville, North Carolina, near the town of Brevard, which is coincidentally is where I went to college. So when I went to college back in the early 1970s at Brevard, this is one of the campgrounds that we used to drive through and throw our beer cans out the window back in my wild college days. And it is just a beautiful campground and obviously I was there in the fall. I take a photograph of events everywhere we spend the night. So I always, if anybody wants a photograph of a campsite at a particular campground, I probably have one. I've stayed at probably 300 campsites in the last couple of years. So there's David's River Campground near Brevard, North Carolina.
This one is just out of the world. It's just out of this. Is this a lightning rod on top of your rig? What is that?
That's my WeBoost cell phone booster. Sometimes you get out in the remote areas and you have a pretty weak cell phone signal, and I don't use Starlink. I don't feel like that's necessary. I have 2 cell phones, which I've switched back and forth on twice here while we've been on the air. And I have T-Mobile and Verizon, and one or the other is usually pretty good. Sometimes both of them are very weak. And I have a cell phone booster that is on a push-up mast that I can stick it up even higher in the air if I need to, if I have a real weak signal. And I believe this is White Sands, New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and check for sure, but that is White Sands, New Mexico.
Yeah, it looks like this doesn't help a whole lot, but yeah, it looks like snow almost, but just a stunning photograph. This one too, I just love Arizona because you only find cacti in Arizona. And you got the moon in there. Full moon tonight, ladies and gentlemen, in case you're wondering. Second full moon this month.
Yeah, that is actually Organ Pipe National Monument, and that's not an organ pipe cactus. That's a saguaro cactus. There are organ pipe right beside Vince there. But what a great campground! Probably one of my favorite campgrounds in the whole country is at Organ Pipe. Highly recommend it. Organ Pipe, if I'm saying that clearly with my hillbilly accent. Yeah.
Is that a state or a national park?
That is a national monument, and the difference between a national monument and a national park is really a distinction without a difference, or a difference without a distinction, however you say that. A national monument is something that has cultural significance that may have recreational opportunities, whereas a national park is something that has recreational opportunities that may also have some cultural significance. So basically, a national park and a national monument are the same thing.
They're always going to be gorgeous. And my favorite state park, is the Lost Dutchman State Park outside of Phoenix. You ever been there?
No, I have not. But my favorite, if I can mention it now, is Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada. I think Valley of Fire is my number 1 favorite state park.
That's fantastic. This is not a state park at all. What is this?
This is standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. There's Vince. By the way, I parked him right in that little parking space there. You can't see the car behind me, but there's about a foot clearance back behind him. And I used to drive a Krispy Kreme donut truck in one of my early jobs right out of high school. I learned how to drive a big van. And when I pulled into Winslow, Arizona, I saw the the famous flatbed Ford. And there was a parking space there, and I whipped in there and parked it the first time. I was so proud of myself. Got out and took a photograph. So there he is. There his nose right up to the behind of the flatbed Ford in Winslow, Arizona.
It's just one of the coolest places. And by the way, that is a verified urban camping spot. Not there on that corner, but about 3 blocks over and off the main drag. But what a great place this is. I just love it's history, it's culture. It brings a song to life, which is kind of, we'll talk about in a second. What are we looking at here? I think this is super interesting.
This is just a map of Florida, where I took a trip. I had, after my last series of cancer treatments, I had about 6 weeks before I came back to see my doctor to make sure that the treatments worked. So I took a 1,600-mile trip around Florida, started up there in the upper left-hand corner at Rancho del Carl, went over to the Atlantic coast and stayed at all the famous, or many of the famous state parks in Florida, including Gamble Rogers State Park and down to John Pennekamp State Park, all the way down the Keys to Key West, staying at Curry Hammock and Bahia Honda, or there's a way to pronounce that that's not Bahia Honda, but that's how it's spelled. Back up through the Everglades, along the Gulf Coast, up to Mayaca River and Paynes Prairie around Gainesville, stopped in at Sunshine State RV, said hi to Scott, and then went on back up to Swanee River State Park and back home to Florida. 1,600 miles. And an interesting factoid that I won't take up too much time. The distance from Pensacola, Florida to Key West, Florida is 832 miles, which coincidentally is exactly the distance from Beaumont, Texas, all the way across the state of Texas to El Paso. So people, when they think of large states, normally think of Montana or Texas or Alaska, but Florida is surprisingly large. So the same distance from Pensacola to Key West as it is across the state of Texas.
Which is pretty crazy. We got a couple super chats in here. So where is my jingle jar? Larry CMG.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much.
I needed a sip.
I'm holding back. So thank you very much, Larry, for that generous tip. Appreciate that. So, safe solo travels to both of you and good stories. Do you travel solo, CMG? I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Then we had one here. This is Joan. She's just Joanne. I apologize. Apparently got 2 puppy dogs. Thank you, Joan, for your donation. Appreciate that. That's how we roll. You get a super chat. You get a jingle in the jar. I can't sing like Traveling Robert, so that's my best use there of the jingle jar. And if you're playing the jingle jar game, that means you get to drink. So that's the deal there. We got a few more questions, but let's go ahead, Carl.
I'll do it again.
All right, go ahead, sir. There's a couple more of these. These are just real bucket list things that people will love to check off. And I think this is the whole point of a van, is where you're going, right? And
I know.
And where's your
I'm in the middle of the giant redwood trees here on the Pacific coast, and I saw the tour through tree in Klamath, California listed on the side of the road, and I pulled off and drove up to it. Unfortunately, there was no one around. I even had to put $5 in a box anonymously and drove up to the tree. And my plan was to drive through the tree, but of course I was by myself. So I had no one to spot me to make sure that I was clearing it. It looks like I would clear it nicely there in that photo, but actually it's very, very tight. So I just parked Vince on the other side of the tree, ran through the tree, took his photo, and backed out and went away. But that was fun.
Hey, you got the story anyway. This is your late wife. What's the deal on this one?
My late wife, Liz, years ago. Liz. We took a cross-country trip, and she wanted to have our photograph made at Old Faithful Geyser, but Liz tended to have very common misspeaks. And instead of calling it Old Faithful, she said, "Let's get our photo made at Old Yeller." So that amused me a lot. So there's a photograph of Liz and I at Old Yeller, as she called it. And I was back through Yellowstone recently, just about a month ago, as a matter of fact. And I pulled Vince up to the similar area there. And Vince, I have a photo of him with Old Yeller too, but I don't think we're going to show that on the show. Yeah. Where else doesn't everybody stop at Wall Drug?
Raise your hand.
Everybody stops at Wall Drug. And I pulled into Wall Drug, and there was only one parking space, happened to be beside another van. I didn't meet the people that had that van, but theirs was a lot cleaner than mine. I don't know if you can see in that photograph, but Vince's nose is totally covered in bugs. It was definitely bug season as I drove through South Dakota.
And this is a bucket list for love. I was just there just a few weeks ago. I got to tell you, it's really stunning. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I was there just about a month and a half ago. There's Devil's Tower, Wyoming. I was in the vicinity of Rapid City, South Dakota, visiting Custer State Park and Mount Rushmore. And I made a trip over and spent a couple of days in the campground right there at Devil's Tower.
The KOA?
No, I stayed at the campground that's actually in the national monument there. In the park itself.
Good for you. Next time I go back, we're doing the KOA because they got a couple bars, and I'm not doing it on What's Up Wednesday because the signal was really weak. But what a great time. This one, I think, too, ladies and gentlemen, these are all kind of the cool things, right? Some of the obvious things, but I'm really proud of you, Carl, for including this photograph. Many people don't even know what this is, but I think this is just so important to the travel experience of educating yourself on our country's history. It's mostly pretty good. It's not pretty good in a lot of cases, but what are we looking at here?
Yeah, this is the famous, or at least infamous, Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, a site of a civil rights march when protesters marched from Selma to, I believe, to the state capitol in Birmingham. And they crossed that bridge, and that's when they met police resistance, and they called it Bloody Sunday, as a number of people were injured during the march there. So it does hold a great deal of historic significance. And I saw on Google Maps that I was close to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, so I made a point of driving across it. I didn't want to stop on the bridge and take Vince's photograph on the bridge, so I just shot the photograph from inside the cab.
Yeah. I think that's, for me, it's just part of the van experience, is just experiencing the history of the country, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah.
The natural stuff's really cool, but I'm just really proud of you for including this. So thank you. We have one more that we got to answer some questions. I love this photograph. I didn't know where this was taken, but look at that rainbow covering his van. Is this a trick photographer situation, or is this real?
No, this is real. You know, being a photographer and a landscape photographer primarily, I have a pretty good sense when things are going to happen. And there was a rainstorm with some hail that came through, and I noticed the direction of the sun. And if you don't know, a rainbow will appear opposite the sun. And as soon as the storm passed and the sun started coming out, I just grabbed my cell phone. Almost all these photographs are taken with my cell phone. In fact, come to think of it, probably every photograph you've shown was just taken with my little cell phone camera. So I just ran outside of Vince and snapped this photo, and there you go. That is the wall, as they call it, at Badlands National Park in South Dakota.
It was just there, so amazing. I got an amazing sunset. I did not get a rainbow. Tell us quick what's on your agenda next. We got a few more questions. We got Libation Live, history, this day in history, and then song of the week. But what's kind of next for you, Carl? And I will keep another couple questions here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm certainly going to go across through the middle of the country. I'm going to go through probably Utah, Nevada, and Nebraska, and Oklahoma, and some places that I haven't been before, and then stop in Tennessee to have a little work done on Vince, and head back to Florida and be there in mid-October. I probably will spend the winter in Florida. Knowing my doctor, he's going to want to put me through some more treatments. So I'll probably be at home at Rancho del Carl, assuming I can get all the broken tree limbs fixed and make it livable by the time I get there in about 6 weeks. And hopefully my contractor will do that for me. After that, I don't have any real plans. You know, like I said, I don't do long-term planning. Long-term planning for me is lunch. So after that, I don't know. Maybe I'll head to Canada next year in the spring. That's an idea. I haven't been to Canada in a few years, so maybe I'll do that.
There you go. Are you going to the Peace, Love, and Vans Vanbury van gathering in Florida in February?
Yes, I am. I was there last year. And of course, I saw you there, Scott, and spoke with you. And took your photograph. You were making your presentation under the talking tree, and I loved it, being surrounded by 300 or 400 vans. I think we're going to have over 500 this year, and yes, I will be there. So if anybody is going to Peace, Love, and Vans, I will be glad to say hi to you there. I put on in my application that I was part of the Scott Watson group. I don't know that I was a real early purchaser, so I didn't get my 5% discount because I didn't have the code at that point. And I did tell them I was with you, but who knows if I'll be in your area or I may be somewhere else. But you know, we'll all be there. Looking forward to it.
Well, me too. It's going to be such a blast. And we will put the bar in front of your van.
Yeah. It was fun.
So I think this is the Chrissy that won the MSCRV bid. Chrissy, congratulations. And because I see Debbie Johnson and some other folks saying congratulations. So it's just what a delight to have you part of the Go Small, Live Large Embassy family community. It's just the greatest thing. And man, we got a lot of folks in here tonight. This is so great. Let's do Libation Live. Have that teed up because it's about that time of day for me. So the reason we do this is because, and if you were at the Volta campout last weekend, you saw me haul out about 6 different bottles. And for me, it's really about tasting the taste from the road, the culture. So this comes from, this is Garrison Brothers, and it's a single barrel Texas straight bourbon whiskey. It comes out of Texas, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I got one more bottle, the really high-end one that I bought. I have not opened yet. But let's go back to this, and then I'll show you what this looks like. But again, if you were in the Volta campout last weekend, you know, I am ready, willing, and able to share this stuff because to me, it's about sharing. You know, we learn, we share, and then you decide. So, Carl, thank you so much for. I know your heart's racing about what's going on at home base, but thank you, sir, for sharing your story. You're so inspiring. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Scott. But life throws you curves, and you just regather and move on. So something good will come of it. It always does.
It always does. Um, you get sheds redone, your shedding material redone. Oh, that's good. Let me just show you what this is real quick. So if you want to buy this online, what's really cool, this is our lineup, garrisonbrothers.com. It's in the Lukenbach, Fredericksburg, Texas area. And I have to thank Tim and Kim, the audience angels that clued me in on this, Carl, which is if you sign up, go to their website, sign up to their program, you can actually bottle the booze yourself. You don't get paid for it. You get a bottle at least. But to sit there and actually hand bottle some of this product, I think is just kind of part of the experience that you probably wouldn't ever do. And you go, they'll send you an email. I've been invited like 3 times now. I'm just in the wrong area. But what a great time it would be, right, Carl, to go to a distillery, hand bottle some, make some new friends, have an experience you probably would never have because we can drive to it whenever we need to, right? And to me, this is kind of the whole deal. So it's just the greatest stuff. And they put a lot of energy into this bottle. I don't know if you can see this, but to me, the craftsmanship on the bottle, this is metal. The star thing, they got a steel band around it, and it's actually, can you see it? It's probably gonna be really hard because it's half empty because everybody drank my booze, which is the point. It's actually hand labeled for the barrel, the bottle, the distillery, the dump date, all that stuff. So again, somebody hand wrote this. That was a volunteer bottling this stuff. So to me, that's kind of the whole point, is just discovery, whether it's bourbon or history, good or bad, or natural stuff. So speaking of history, Carl, let's kind of show the folks this, answer a few more questions. Oh my gosh, we're over time. Are you okay, stay around for another minute or two?
Sure, go right ahead.
I just love this. So this day in history, 39 years ago, the Space Shuttle Discovery takes off on its maiden voyage. What were you doing in 1984, Carl? Any idea?
Ooh, 1984. I was an airline guy. I was a headquarters guy for an airline called Piedmont Airlines in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Yeah.
I remember those guys. I was 1 year out of high school in 1984. I had no idea what I was doing. I know.
Guess I earned this gray hair.
I know, right? Mine's going gray, I assure you. Let's see. So 56 years ago, Thurgood Marshall was confirmed as the first African-American justice of the Supreme Court. Very famous man. It's always famous to be first. You're famous for being first a lot of times, but he was a pretty good judge, right? And what I thought was kind of interesting is that 60 years ago, 1963, the Moscow-Washington hotline of the leaders between the U.S. and Soviet Union goes into operation. So I can't remember if that was before or after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Would you know that? Was that a result of that?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But my question would be, does the White House have a hotline to the Kremlin today? Because is anybody calling? Is anybody dialing? I don't know. That'd be kind of an interesting one. And let's just finish off with our,
They don't have the red phone anymore. I saw an episode of The West Wing. Of course, not that The West Wing is reality, but in that one, somebody asked President Bartlett about the red phone. He says, "We don't use those anymore. We just pick up the phone and call them."
Or send a text message. Excuse me. So, Carl, this is your song of the week. It's a record player, so it goes back a little ways. Ramblin' Man. So why this song of the week?
I just love the tone and the message, of course, about it. I was born a rambling man, and I think I probably was, although I didn't ramble that much most of my life, but I'm certainly rambling now, so I'm catching up.
Catching up for last time. And what I found kind of fascinating, it was released in 73, August 73, this month. Wow. How many years ago was that? I don't know. And that song was written by the band and was inspired by the Hank Williams song named Ramblin' Man. And that's a song we talked about a few months ago. It's one of my favorite Hank Williams songs. It's very twangy, so be careful. But if you listen to the words, he's talking about a train, not an RV, not a van. But I totally get your point, Carl, on this. And this was the Allman Brothers' only top 10 song. It hit number 2 on Billboard a few months after release. So yeah, I was always thank you to our friends at Wikipedia for sharing that. So let's see if we can grab a few more questions. Man, we had a big group in here tonight. I really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Carl spent a lot of time doing that little trailer. In case you saw the trailer for tonight, we might have started something new. Hey, there's Beyond Intentions in the house. Howdy. And Sherry's got a good idea here. Sherry, one of the administrators of the Embassy RV group. Carl, love seeing your photos on Facebook. You inspire us to travel. And I think you mentioned, Sherry, to maybe think about doing a calendar. Carl, what do you think? Right?
I did. I did a calendar last year. I called it the Vince calendar. I take photographs of Vince. You know, some of those that you saw, like the Edmund Pettus Bridge and Devil's Tower, will be in my calendar for next year. I only make 3 or 4 of them and then give them to my family and a couple of close friends. So I don't sell calendars, but there's no money to be making calendars. I can tell you from being a professional photographer and running a gallery, there's not a lot of money in photography in any way you do it, but certainly selling calendars is about the least profitable thing you can do as a photographer, but it's fun to do anyway.
It's kind of vanity project, right?
That's right.
It was so well anyway. So Christy, congratulations. She says it's me. I am so proud. We are so proud of you. Thanks for it's amazing. The Price is Right strategy works every time. You overspent, ma'am. You spent $5. All you need is $1. I probably would have put another grand in just to get me over the. Anyway, so we are so happy for you, and it's just great. Here she is. I'm excited to be part of the family. I'm sure we'll be in touch. And if you want, Christy, I've talked to Terry about this. If you wanted to, some followers of the channel and that are really into this and want to share their experience, we can do a YouTube live of your delivery day after you go through all the stuff with Terry and the team. But just kind of getting the key handover. If you haven't seen my video, I'm sure, Carl, yours was pretty juicy too. We made the Winnebago Motorhomes in Rockford dealer put on birthday hats. I made them, and we had blue whistles. It was silly. So, Christy, think about that. You're welcome to reach out to me. Go small, live large at gmail.com. And if you want to talk about that, we'd love to, just because you have a special van there, young lady.
Yes.
And I'm happy to have a shot of whiskey with you in your whiskey wagon. So. Okay, let's just look for a few last questions, or we'll call a wrap. Carl, you can see the things going by. I'm just seeing if there's. So Kathy's got a question, a very technical question here. Carl, how do you manage your power without lithium? No generator. Run Jenny a lot. So do you run the generator a lot?
I did recently because I'm here in Crescent City and there are wildfires in the area, and they cut off the electricity to Crescent City because the power line from Oregon ran right through the area of the wildfire. So I did run the generator more than I normally would. But on a typical overnight, my batteries are usually pretty well fully charged when I arrive wherever I am at a Cracker Barrel or a state park, and the batteries last overnight without any problem. Run the refrigerator, and the next morning I usually have enough battery to make 1 cup of coffee off the inverter, and by then it's daylight and I can turn the generator on if I need to, or just start the van and head on down the road.
It's good to hear from a generator side of things. Shelby has a comment here. Carl, I've been to Winslow. The historic hotel there is amazing, called La Posada. Did you get to see that by chance?
No, I didn't. No, I was too busy out on the street taking a look at the flatbed Ford and hoping that some girl would come by and look at me, but nobody did. So.
That's because you're too busy schmoozing with the bronze statues there, sir,
That's
on
right.
the corner. And I was like you that first time. I missed the entire La Posada Hotel. The next time we went back and street camped, that evening I walked around and found it by this complete accident, just walking around. It is, Shelby, to your point, an amazing hotel. Mary Gomrion has a question for you, Carl. Can you spend the night at, I'm guessing she means, National Monuments, so like at the Devil's Tower, can you spend the night there unless you're at a campground, right? You probably can't.
If they have a campground, all national parks and national monuments say no overnight parking allowed in the vistas, the turnouts, and that kind of thing. But if they have a campground, yes, you can. Yeah, at the campground, obviously. Yeah.
So this is great. So this is Class B RV newbie. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. I am in the Tin Can Carl fan club. Always enjoy his posts on the Travato owner wannabe page. You're a busy guy on social media. How can people follow you?
Yeah, I use the handle Tin Can Carl. I don't post on Facebook except in the groups, and like in our group, the GSLL group, and then the Travato owners and wannabes, and a couple of Facebook groups down in Florida for state parks and that type of thing. On Instagram, you can find me as Tin Can Carl. Just look up Tin Can Carl and you'll see my adventures, and not a lot in the last couple of weeks because I've been staying put pretty much here in the Crescent City area, which is very unusual for me. Now, like I said, typically I go every day, but I've been staying pretty close here because of the cool weather and so forth. So now that it cools off on Labor Day, the official end of summer is this weekend, and I'm going to be back on the road. So Yeah, it should
So
be
great.
exciting. Instagram, Tin Can Carl. Facebook, you just find me in the groups.
That's so great. Everybody's just saying thanks, Carl, for sharing. They love your postings, and people want to meet you. So come to the Peace, Love, and Vans in Florida in February. Get that information on my website. Go Small, Live Large. And just we're over time, so I just want to respect that. And you have a lot of stuff going at home base. So just Carl, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you everybody for watching, and the live or the replay. Carl, any last thoughts?
Not really, just to thank you, Scott, for all you do. It's such a fun community that you have here. This group is really fun, and the hard work you put into this, I know how much hard work it is. I also know how hard it is to do the video editing. When I was involved in the gallery, I was the guy that did all the video editing, and it's typical to spend as much as an hour for every minute of video that you put out. It is a tremendous amount of work, and I want to thank you for the effort you put into that.
Well, it's a labor of love, and it's to help us all learn, share, and help people decide what to do next. And that's what it's about. I stand on other shoulders, like my heroes, Joe and Kate Russo. Got to spend the weekend with them, and many of you are part of that experience this weekend. And it's all of us working together to really come together and figure out what it is you want to do next, and then just have a deeper, richer life. Sharing your story was part of that. So just thank you again, Carl, for that.
I'm glad I was able to do it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, Scott. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. Stay right there, Carl. Everybody else, we'll say good night. We'll see you next week. And another couple videos dropping, one on Friday, one on Sunday. So until then, we say journey on and peace be with you.